It's recording.
It's now. Say hello.
We're live.
We're live, and I think it looks good. We can see the everything. So, yes. Hi. So let's see until we get some people coming in, because we're early. It works really quickly this time.
Yeah, I only did a few of these, and just completely useless with stuff.
Yeah. Now everybody knows that. Whoever will see it, because if they don't see it now, they'll see it a little bit later. So the numbers are coming, but I usually hate looking at the numbers. So I usually scroll down to see questions, which should come very soon. So we will start with a few clarifications. Hi, Eugene. We've both been vaccinated.
Yeah.
We've both stayed in the same location for a few days, and we've both been recently tested.
Yeah. I think every other day it seems to be recently.
Yeah.
Get something stuck up my nose. So a few days ago, and we don't really associate with too many other people. I go and ride my bicycle by myself. You go walking with Bruce with her dog, so we don't really interact with too many other people.
No.
Yeah, I think in the world we're in right now, you have to keep your bubble small, don't you? Otherwise the risk is too high.
Yeah, so I'm going to say it in Hebrew as well. אז בימים האחרונים גם יוג'ין וגם אני עברנו בדיקות, שנינו מחוסנים, ואנחנו נמצאים באותו האזור כבר מזה זמן מה, ולא נפגשים יותר מדי אנשים, אז אנחנו, אפשר להגיד, במעגל הקטן אנחנו בבאבל, כמו שנקרא, ולכן זה בסדר הקרבה הזו. אנחנו נמצאים במוסך, אתם יכולים לראות מאחורי את רשימת, we can see over there all your suits, your collection.
Yeah.
So is this from the start?
Yeah, there's one from each year, starting from which side? I know my finger's going to go the wrong way. Yeah, we started from the left. I'm missing the very first one, but more or less there's one from every year from 2002 through to 2020. So yeah, almost 20 years.
There must be a story there. Why are you missing the first one?
Well, I was 14 and I was so small then. I was like Danny Bedrosian size, like 48 kilograms. And then there wasn't kids race suits then, so there was a woman's suit that branded, and I put that on, and that fitted me. So then, of course, other kids, then it wasn't normal for a kid of 14 to start in Ireland at that time. So then whenever younger kids started after me as well, they didn't have a suit, so then I gave it to them, and that suit must have been crashed like 50 times. But hopefully I'll get it back again. But I know.
Do you know where it is?
Yeah, I think the last person that had it was my cousin that then started racing years after me, and he was small as well. So I think it's in his garage, but it was everywhere. That
so how many patches are on it?
That thing, I don't know how it survived. It had a few repairs that I remember, but back then suits, I don't know how the hell they survived the crashes that we did.
But does it pass the regulations these days?
No, it wouldn't. It hasn't been worn since, it was probably the 5 years after I started, from then 2001 until then maybe 2006. So it's been like 15 years missing. It hasn't been used in 15 years, but nowhere could you wear it now. But back then, regulations were very relaxed. Even helmets, unfortunately, we used to use helmets that were crashed, and we used to repaint them. Yeah. And it's so wrong now when we look, but that's the awareness then wasn't what it is now.
Well, the regulations change a lot. They're changing every year. We also see the homologation of the helmets that you have to wear. So the helmet now is actually different than even the helmet you had last year. Yeah,
now we have this barcode, which is fantastic now. If you're in World Championship, it's always a shock for somebody when they do a wild card, and if they aren't prepared, they come and do like 300 championship and they don't realise. So I think some of these helmets have been worn by 300 riders. I always end up to be the guy I'm the go-to guy. I'm organised with my kit, so then if there's a young kid, even some superbike guys don't, for some reason I've forgotten their chest protector, it's like Eugene's got a spare, then I'm the guy they go to, and same for earplugs and simple like that. So even when it came to helmets, I was then the guy that people came and I was like, yeah, sure, that's it, I'm there to help. Maybe probably because I am helpful, whereas some other guys would say no. I would like to help the young kids because exactly what I said about whenever I started, I was wearing helmets that I shouldn't have been wearing. So, I mean, I brought a collection of what, if the kid crashes one, it adds to the story, doesn't it?
Alpenstars is the suit, boots, gloves.
Yeah, and the helmets, surely. So I've been with both of my Alpenstars first year was 2006 and Shoei 2007, so I've stayed loyal. You know, whenever you're with the best kit, then why go elsewhere?
So we can see sometimes young riders in Ireland in all sorts of places with your helmet, with your gear.
Well, I think people didn't notice it last year in it was the European 300 Championship. There was kids with my helmets on, and I guess they maybe thought that they were replicas, but sometimes they were my actual helmets that I would give the kid for the weekend. So then I would after the racing on Sunday, I would be maybe doing my debrief, and then the kids would be outside the garage with my helmet to return it back. So yeah, I like to be helpful when I can.
Okay, so Merke is here, and hi Merke, and he's asking, did I give you chocolate bar? No, I gave him Bamba. And Bamba, that peanut butter, the peanuts thing I gave you in the bag, but he's choosing carefully what he's eating.
Oh, you've been baking some good stuff.
Yeah.
Before I went out on the bike today, some blueberry cake. That was good. Yeah, Tammy can bake. She can cook.
I've been the housewife. המאוורר עושה הרבה רעש. We have a fan here. It's mine. Sorry. It's mine. Yeah, okay. No, it's my fan for the computer.
Because they hear the noise?
Yeah.
Maybe it's this one.
No, it's mine. Is it better now, Asaf? עכשיו זה יותר טוב? Some people are jealous. Well, they should be jealous.
I'm trying to read the Hebrew. Is this Hebrew then?
Yeah, that's the
I understand
Hebrew.
the emoji. I can.
Well, it says that this one says that the fan is making too much noise, so I disconnected it. And this one says it's not the fan, it's my NVC in the places that I've been to. Well, you should be envious because it was cool, and when you hear what I did today, it was even.
Yeah.
Yeah. So today I rode. I drove Portimao track, which is a track you know very well because we are not so far from that track right now.
No, it's only 15 minutes away.
Yeah, it depends how fast you drive, but yeah.
Speed limit, of course.
Of course, we're only keeping the rules. We drove there.
But I haven't ridden the new asphalt yet, so you've driven the new asphalt, and I still haven't.
Yeah, when are you going to do that?
Oh, that's a good question. The race is here on the 3rd of October. It would be nice to test before then.
Yeah. Do you often go there? Do you cycle there?
Yeah, even today I cycled past there, just because the roads around the track are a nice little maze and there isn't so many cars for traffic. But mostly I use like the go-kart track because it's good for supermoto.
So, Eugene, אירי, אבל אנחנו נמצאים בפורטוגל, הם גרים בפורטוגל כבר שנתיים בערך. Why did you move to Portugal? Why are you here?
Well, I was in Monaco for 7 years, and it was always temporary because while I enjoyed it there, I knew I wasn't going to stay there forever. So I started looking around for a place to live that had the sun track. As much as I love Ireland, after a few years living in Central Europe with the good weather, I understood that I couldn't go back full time because I like the option to ride bikes, be it bicycles or motorbikes, or just do sports every day in the good weather.
Because we hear a lot about the Andorra people, there's full cold over there, but it is even, not in this case, they also talk about tax invasion, whatever, how you say it. But it's mainly also because you guys can actually work on your fitness, do it outside, not only indoor, not only in the gym. It's crucial for you guys.
Yeah, and I can understand in Andorra because we had it in Monaco as well. Compared to whenever I lived in Ireland, we've got a strange lifestyle, don't we? Because we work on weekends and then not in the week, whereas all our friends in Ireland then were working during the week and then they were off on the weekends. So that's what was nice about our little community, and the same in Andorra. Everybody's on a 7-day week there, so you're living a similar kind of life, and you've got people doing the same kind of style of living. So it works there.
Because you really had a community of riders, drivers, all sorts of sports personality, and big names also from Formula One that you were very close and you could share, because not a lot of people can understand what you guys go through daily.
Yeah, and I think as well for the girlfriends and wives, also boyfriends and husbands of them, the female sports women that were there in Monaco. It is true, then they understand. Like whenever Pippa had to drive me to surgeries in Barcelona or pick me up sometimes before, like we did before our wedding, then friends helped her because they understood. So yeah, it's most of the time it is a fantastic way of life, but there's the obvious hardships that are often overlooked. So I think whenever we're all living a similar kind of life, we can understand the hardships as well.
And your daily routine, it's not that simple. It's not like you can lay around and eating chips all day.
Well, at the moment it is quite simple. I'm not so busy. Whenever you're in the intense period, like August and September, it will suddenly be intense and tough because the turnarounds are quite quick whenever you've got back-to-back races and some tests in between, and then the time is short. So yeah, now it's really relaxed, but there is some times whenever you're opening the door and going back through it again.
But every day it's like 3-4 hours workout still when you're off.
I do less now during the season, so now it's 2 to 3 maximum. But in the winter time you do more because that's where the work is done. During the season you have to, the guys that do less are usually the more successful ones. The guys that do more always burn out, and the guys that you see sick at the track. So it's hard to do because we like doing sports, we like riding bikes, but actually the less we can do is the better during the year. And you learn that from guys like in cycling, because you imagine in that sport that the guys never stop, but you realize the best ones are the guys that know how to put their feet up, because that's tough for sports people, because usually the guys that get to the top are the ones that work the hardest, but then you have to know when to put the feet up and relax.
כן. אז הוא מנסה כן לשמור על איזשהו איזון בין המרוצים ולשמור על מצב שבו הגוף יכול להחלים, but you do stretch a lot. You are very flexible.
Yeah, I think that's after, like we said, 20-year career with a lot of crashes, it's maintenance. And that's what I learned, because a lot of guys go to the physio and have a 1 hour appointment maybe once a week, and then they sit back and relax. But if you maintain yourself, you can do so much. So you sit and watch TV, and I just like to stretch and relax, because for me it's always about balance, about symmetry, and as long as everything is perfectly aligned, then it's all good.
But your brother is sometimes taking care of you,
yeah.
John Laverty. Exactly. You have 3, right? You have any sisters?
We're 6.
You're 6?
Yeah. There's Michael, John, me and my twin brother, and then 2 sisters. So Phil Maran, the top rank crew chief, is my brother-in-law as well. Yeah, we're taking over the world.
I didn't know you had a twin.
Yeah, my twin had a baby boy last Wednesday. Yeah, so he had a baby boy, and I want to meet him soon.
Does he look like you? Is it like foray?
No, completely opposite.
Because they threw it was complete. הייתי במרוץ של הסיבולת באסטורי לפני שבוע וחצי. I was there in Estoril, and one guy is presenting Eurosport, the other guy is on a bike, and I got completely... זה לגמרי, זה הזוי, and they look exactly the same.
And their brothers are not twins. But
they're brothers?
Yeah, I'm quite sure they're not twins.
I think they're twins. I think
but they're fast as well. They're 2 guys that's the first time I've really met Kenny, because I went on Estoril and rode the World Endurance bike on the Tuesday. And he's such a cool guy. I think he's coming on a holiday to Portugal sometime this year, so it'd be nice to catch him again.
Yeah, I met him when he was in Moto2. So if you need his contact, let me know.
There you go.
But, לא, הם פשוט נראים אותו דבר. אחד משדר את היורוספורט ומסתובב עם זה, ופתאום אתה מסתכל לתוך מוסך, ואתה רואה את השני שם. רגע, I had no idea they were twins, or brothers, and there were 2, and I'm like, I got so confused. So you're 6, but I know 2 more. I know John, who sometimes take care of you physically, and I know Michael, who is BT commentator, rider himself because he competed in Estoril, and he is also a spotter and a trainer for your rivals.
For Chaz. So Chaz's sister is Michael's wife. Like I said, we're just taking over the motorsport world. So we've got, John doesn't just take care of me physically because he's a qualified osteopath and very good at it because, yeah, as a racer, like I said, when you crash so much, you learn about your body, and then he went to study it. But he also takes care in British Championship of there's an Affinity Academy there, Kawasaki, like Young Rider Academy. Mm-hmm. So he's taken over British Superbikes. We're trying to take over World Superbikes between me, my brother-in-law Phil, who is the crew chief of Top Rack, and then Michael, he'll try and take over MotoGP with the commentary role. We're just, we're everywhere. Laverty's everywhere.
Yeah, you are. But how is it, is it not a little bit strange that your brother-in-law is working for Top Rack, and your brother actually is working with Chaz and he's spotting for him? Does he help you a little bit also or no?
Yeah, he will whenever we talk. You know, I share information with him and he shares information with me. I think that's helpful to both sides. We discussed it even last week about I have that relationship with Jonas Folger. There's 4 BMW riders, but only 2 that communicate, Jonas and I. And I think that's key. If you give a little, then the other person gives a little, and that helps. So yeah, even though Chaz is a rival, he's almost like a brother. I've known Chaz for 22 years since we were kids, so he's like a brother really.
Yeah, some of the riders you do know for a very, very long time, and you do have, you've really built a community also. Pippa, your wife, she has her own community as well of the spouses, the girlfriends. It feels a little bit different to what we usually know. Yeah. And how we usually see. Why does this kind of attitude work for you? Because we see some riders who like to separate everything, be alone.
I don't know why, honestly. Strangely, I am a loner. I could live alone, but at the same time, I'm happy to have people around. So I'm just quite easygoing in that respect, whereas a lot of other people are maybe uptight. So I don't have the answer for that. Every rider is different.
Who helped you when you started?
My 2 brothers, Michael and John, I would say, because they raced before me and they did the hard work because they were racing and just with my dad and they had to learn everything, and then by the time I started, they'd done the groundwork.
We had a little chat a few weeks ago for Zane.
Yeah, and I have no idea what you've written in there, so it could be anything.
It could. I really translated what you told me.
But I want to check if like Google Translate the camera works with people.
Pippa checked.
Does it work?
Yeah, she did. She said you said good stuff.
It's impressive, that technology.
Yeah, she checked your quotes and she said they were good. And מי שלא קרא את הכתבה מאוד, כדאי לכם לקרוא את הכתבה, זה כתבה לכל העניין התנהלות המרוץ בראש, תפיסת המרוץ, התנהלות המרוץ, המשחקים של המוח בעצם, כי המוח זה אחד הדברים חשובים במרוצים. So this whole story I started talking to you because the story was about racing mood and getting into racing mood, because it's not a simple thing to get into racing mood, and we know that sometimes that's the X factor.
Yeah.
And you gave us a few tips, so let's just talk about it, because we were talking about racing mood. So how do you get into racing mood, and what do you do to get into that? Because it seems like you have this switch.
Yeah, I'm fortunate. For me, routine makes me into the racer. I don't have to psych myself up by routine, then automatically the adrenaline starts flowing and then the magic happens. But one thing I didn't mention after that interview, I forgot to tell you, because it seems like so long ago now. In my first year when I was battling with Cal Crutchlow in World Supersport, we did some private tests like in the UK, and I remember going there because we didn't go with the race truck, we didn't have the garage, everything set up. I remember the team went with the small van and I made some stupid mistakes, stupid crashes, and it was because the routine wasn't there. So I learned that quite early on, that I realized that I had to make that switch, but because I arrived and everything was out of whack, and that's when I learned.
Do you feel like something is missing? Do you feel like you forgot something?
Yeah, it was like when I was riding down pit lane, I realized, I'm not fully focused here. And that seems so strange to say, because you should be going in pit lane and it should be like, right, game on. But it starts way before then. So it's hard. You can't really explain it, but that year I learned, because I made some of them 2 times was actually just missing a braking marker and running off track and then crashing off the track. And that's quite scary at those speeds, that you could have such a brain fart, but it can happen. So that's part of learning who you are and making sure that every time you get on the bike, you're fully focused. Because
the people I spoke to for this story said that you cannot teach really how to get into racing mode. And it's something that you can see in riders really early in their careers, and by the time they get to the world class level, you already know if they have it or not.
Yeah, and then there's some guys that even would stay in World Championship for 10 years and still never get it. And you look at them and you think, how have you not worked this out yet, that they will continue to make these same mistakes? But some people it comes naturally, some people have to work at it like I did. Like I explained in 2009, you can see with somebody like Sam Lowe's worked really hard in recent years to get focused, because everybody, you've got 2 sides of the brain fighting against each other, and it's important to channel it.
So sometimes, like the games that we see on track, off track, going out of pit lane, following other riders, that seemed to me like something that some riders are trying to throw other riders from the racing mood.
Well, trying to rattle them, but that's you're probably referring to somebody like Marc Marquez and Mark.
A bit, yeah.
That Mark's
antics with Vinales, and that completely shook him.
But that's it. Mark's a genius on the bike, and he's got. If you're saying there's 1,000 gigabyte up there, Mark to ride a bike only needs 50 of those, so he's got like so much more to play with. Whereas maybe Maverick doesn't have that, and he's running at full capacity.
Because Quartararo didn't care. There are riders that they manage to. So is that because their ability to stay in their racing mood better, or is that?
I think it's temperament. That's not something necessarily on the bike. That's probably something you could see if you play ping pong with them. And I like to do that because I'm fortunate that I can't be rattled. So I'll play somebody at ping pong and they'll be better than me, and I can get under their skin just by keeping cool and beat them. So. It's all in your head.
Yeah, אוקיי, למי שלא יודע, אני את יוג'ין מכירה בגלל שנכנסתי לקרב טוויטר עם פיפה אשתו לגבי נערות מטריה, ואז פיפה הזמינה אותי להיות נערות מטריה, וככה הכרנו. I just explained how we met quite a few years ago, but we really got to know each other when I was holding the umbrella for you.
Yeah, 2018.
And it was terrifying for me. I was afraid to disturb you. I had really proper advice what I'm allowed to do, what I'm not allowed to do, where I'm allowed to look at. I wasn't allowed to talk to you unless you approach me first, and then I
told you that?
Your wife. Well, I'm not allowed to ask you a stupid question, what's that on the bike, or something like that, right? Or to ask you how the weather is, because you're in your zone, aren't you?
Yeah, for me, on the grid, I like to have small chat and just not about racing, because I remember some silly things that people requested me to do, like in Thailand, 2018, that same year was where I broke my pelvis in a big accident. And then on the grid for 2019, I remember a commentator asked me before he was going to do the grid interviews, and he said, "Do you mind if I come onto the grid and ask you about the accident last year?" I said, "Yeah, I mind. I'm mentally quite a strong guy, but I don't need that when I'm on the grid." So I can understand that it's important, because some people would ask silly questions, but not in terms of silly chat and joking. I quite like that in the grid because it keeps you relaxed.
But it is a very intense atmosphere out there on the grid. You feel something is going on. When we see you guys, but you feel it in the air. Yeah,
and whenever I'm the rider on the bike, I don't feel that pressure. But exactly like you said, whenever I've been on the grid with my brother Michael in MotoGP and BSB, and also my brother John when he was racing in British Superbikes, then I suddenly feel the pressure. So it's the same whenever you're in the garage. Whenever I'm in the racing garage, it seems like everything's going at 1,000 miles per hour, but then whenever you're stood there, you've got a different perspective on it. So it's from which side of the fence you're stood, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you can just tell me no, but it was quite a difficult year for racing, motor racing. Just this week, another difficult thing happened with Hugo passing in the Repsol CEV race, just 14, and there was a guy, Brad, injured heavily in the BSB. It's not easy to block everything out. It's not easy to ignore it, especially when we're talking about really young riders.
Yeah.
And how do you see that? And what do you, because we didn't talk about it. We saw the news, we were both looking at our mobiles and seeing the news, but how do you feel about that? What do you think about that?
Well, I'm 35 now, so I've known the risks for a long time. Yeah, it's so sad to see what happened with Brad Jones in BSB that's still in a critical condition. That we can understand, but it is a bit of a problem with young Hugo. He's only
14?
He was 14, and that is, I remember I started racing when I was 14 as well, and I probably didn't understand all the risks either. So it's a tough one, and one that's always going to be debated. You're an adult, depending on what country. Some countries 16, 18, I'm not sure, but 14, you're a kid, so it's too young.
Is it hard for you to defend your own occupation? Because I saw some people having some hard time defending their own occupation when they see something like this happening.
I don't think I wouldn't try to defend it, or because there's no right or wrong. That is the problem. So everybody's going to have an opinion, and it's tough to say because the same in motocross. These kids are starting so young, like in America, they're professionals from such a young age, and tragic accidents can happen in motocross as well. So motorsport, it's a very ageist community is what you would say, because we can see age is becoming so important. That's not just in motorsport, we see it even in music. You know, a young musician is more attractive to sponsors and to for big brands to be involved with. So I can see why we do want the kids to start at that age as well, because it's the same with something like language. If a kid starts language young, they pick it up so quickly. You start motorbikes
because
young.
These days, if you don't start motorbikes young, you cannot do anything. Yeah. We cannot have another Max Biaggi who started at 19.
No, it doesn't happen anymore. It's in the past, which is a sad thing, because I feel very fortunate that I did have my parents that supported me at that age, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to start racing until then. I had a job and was earning some money, and like you said, by then it's too late to be professional. So I really feel for people that don't get the chance to do it because of the age being a factor. And you need somebody to support you financially.
Yeah, it's not easy. This world becomes more and more difficult also to get anywhere. We hear a lot of voices about Lewis Hamilton. He's always talking about that, how difficult it is to start racing.
Yeah. But it's even tougher now as well. Then compared with when I started with the Red Bull Rookies project in the UK, that Johnny, Ray and I were teammates. We had projects like that. If I didn't have that, I don't know where I'd be. And that all stopped from 2008, from the global recession. Projects like that then weren't there. Okay, there is the Red Bull Rookies as we know now, but there isn't these projects happening in national championships as much.
But there's the British Talent Cup, there's quite a lot of, but how is it going in Ireland? Is there anything going on in Ireland?
In Ireland it's similar to whenever we were kids, that if you wanted to crack the big time you had to go across the UK, so that was even tougher, because then that meant you had to get the boat across the water, and that's a big travel. So while people may drive 3 hours, we had to drive 1 hour to the boat and then make 2 or 3 hours on the ferry, and then another like 5 from Scotland. So it was a big undertaking. And
now with Brexit, it will be even more difficult, I assume.
Well, Northern Ireland is essentially part of the UK, so that's where I'm from, Northern Ireland. So it's easier for people from the north, from the Republic of Ireland, to go there. I have no idea with Brexit. It's crazy, isn't it? But yeah, it's something I would like to do. Definitely in the future is helping kids from Ireland, both Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, because it's the island of Ireland as we speak about, because it's the problem is the water between Ireland and what is England, where most of the races of the British Championship are, because that's an extra hurdle. It's the same for, even tougher obviously for kids coming from Australia, because they can't base themselves there. When you come to Europe, be it to race in the British Championship or the European Championships, or 300 World Championship as it is now, you have to come as a kid from the other side of the world, so that obviously means the parent as well. So the parents have to up and leave home and come all the way to the other side of the world.
Did your parents have to, like, I heard about riders who had to mortgage the parents had to mortgage 3 times the houses, the farm. Jack Miller, his dad, even got really sick during the time, probably as an effect. Stoners had to leave half of the family back home and travel with Casey. There's so many families who had to give up so much. Did your family had to do it as well?
Yeah, well, my dad worked hard to allow us to do that, and like I said, going to England where most of the races were, we would do the racing on Sunday, and then because you had to drive to Scotland to get the boat home, and the boat would be at 3 o'clock in the morning. And then it would arrive back at something like 6. It was a 3-hour boat because it was the one that the truckers would take, and we were all kids lying there. You would arrive back in Belfast at 6 o'clock, drive home for 7 o'clock, get a shower and go to school, and my dad would go to work. So most people get a weekend off, but parents like ours were willing to give their free time to do what they did to support us, to pay the bills. So yeah, I'm forever grateful for that.
Free time, and also the free money for vacations, for all the extras.
Yeah, and that's why like 5 years ago for Christmas I bought my dad's old bike back, like a 350 Yamaha that he had, because he's had it in his garage again, because we're kids, we didn't know the value of it, but he had it in pieces, and his plan was always to rebuild it and restore it, but he needed the money, so he sold that, and we didn't realize that he was really selling a beloved possession. So whenever I became then older and understood what he did give up, then I took the chance to buy it back for him as a gift, so that was nice.
That's very nice. One thing that I'm really curious about, and I would love if you could explain, is that you've ridden so many different bikes. You've been Aprilia, Yamaha, help me here, Ducati, BMW, of course, at the moment.
Every brand, I think.
Every brand. How do you? It's different character, it's different personality of bikes. You are the same. How do you change? How do you? What's the process like? What's going on in your mind when you have to change different bikes?
Well, our sports, we can break it down. We've got braking, cornering, exit, so it's just a matter of breaking it down. And once you first ride a bike, you realize, this one is stronger here or weaker there. Focus on the weak point. That's pretty simple.
On the weak point, not on the strong point.
Yeah, that's a mistake people make often, is they focus on the strong point, but if that's already there, that box is ticked. So you got to go back and tell the guys, this bike is not good in this area. My old bike did this, and that's what you're always trying to do, work on your weaknesses. And
are you surprised by the weaknesses when you get on them? Because some of them you've seen on the track?
Yeah, often you are, because we're not engineers, and their engineering understanding is sometimes limited as riders. So from what we do know, then we have an impression that this bike's going to do this, or this bike's going to do that, and then you ride it and find it maybe the opposite. If you race it and it's one of your rivals, and you really get to see the bike closely over 1 year, then you get to learn it from the outside. It feels like almost you really know it then. But yeah, if you're just watching it on TV, you don't learn anything. You think you know the bike, but it's not until you ride it that you really know.
Can you tell us one of the weaknesses of one of the bikes you've ridden or you see, or is there something you can tell us?
The one that I'm working on right now with BMW, it's clear to say I'm always focusing on that point, is the stopping performance, because the last 2 bikes that I rode were really strong in that area, and it's an area that I want to improve with this bike, and we're gradually improving it. And we planned some tests this year as well with BMW to improve that area. But it's good now, because last year I did pointed out this weak point, but we were 2 riders, Tom Sykes and I, and Tom didn't complain about this problem so much because he's a unique rider. Whereas it's so nice now we're 4 riders. That's the power of why manufacturers want riders on the grid, because then Jonas Folger and Michael Wagnermark had the same problem. So suddenly you had 3 riders with a problem and 1 rider not, so the majority wins. Whereas last year it was 50-50, so you're trying to understand who's right, who's wrong. Whereas now it's got a clear direction. So you can't just have 2 riders because one may differ to the other, where power and numbers, suddenly 3 riders can't be wrong.
All your knowledge, all your expertise, you said you also like to assist other young riders. Is there something in the plan for the future in regards to school, in regards to courses for riders, in regards to something like that?
Yeah, I would like to. My brother Michael is already doing that in England. He lives on the border between Wales and England, and he's set up an academy with young riders, and I'd like to do something similar for kids from Ireland. I'm based right near to the Portimao track as well, so it'd be nice to get kids riding the track like this, because my first year in racing, some of the tracks that I was riding, well, they're like super motard tracks, you know, and then suddenly if you come to a track like Portimao, then it really opens your eyes, as it did for me whenever I first did that in my second year of racing.
One question, was your father a rider as well?
Yeah, he rode himself.
Did he compete?
Yeah, but like road racing, you know, Northwest 200. He never did the Isle of Man TT. He wanted to do it, but he didn't race there, but he did the road racing in Ireland. But then my eldest sister, Emma, once she was born, then my dad stopped. He said no. My father...
He stopped, or was he asked to stop?
No, he stopped. I think he understood, okay, the risks that are involved with road racing. He said, I'm a father now, so it must have been tough because he was still quite young and could have continued racing, but...
was he good?
Yeah, people always, whenever we were kids, people would always tell you, oh, your dad was amazing, he was such a great rider. He didn't do so many years, so I can believe he was really strong.
Did you think about going to do road racing?
No, never crossed my mind. It's a different sport. Whenever I grew up in British Championship, there were some guys that did road racing as well, and the mentality was different. Those guys, I'd say they had much less fear. So you have to do road racing, but my balls aren't big enough to do that. I think that's it. No, it's the guys that do it are so brave, and I have to admire them for that. But it's not for me. No. As well, also because
we established that point already. You don't need balls to be brave.
Yeah,
but
that's just the expression.
Yeah,
I don't mean physically those. I'm not talking about them. I just mean the expression. You know, those guys.
Yeah, I get you.
To do what they did, you could tell there was something different there, and I didn't have that. You put me on a race circuit, and we never think about where the barrier is, but we know that we can push it 100%, and that's what I enjoy doing. Whereas I know if I lined up on a road race track, and I saw the walls beside there, I know I'm not going to be able to push.
The walls, the people are so close also.
Yeah. They line the track, and it's a spectacle, something that I do enjoy watching, but after I know the results, I have to say.
We're in your garage. We see the suits, we see the helmets. Behind there's a BMW and bikes to go off-road. There's not a bike to go on the roads.
No.
Do you have driving license? Riding?
Yeah, I got it 3 years ago.
But you're not taking a bike on the streets?
BMW, they gave me a R9T last year for the summer here, so I'll have to ask BMW nicely again for it, because it is cool to have one. Actually, I would like to have one in the garage. So I've been here a year and a half now. I've got my stable there of bikes that I want for training and for fun. So I would like to have a motorbike there permanently.
But do you like riding on the streets?
No, I do, but I wasn't interested when I was a kid because I only wanted to go fast, and then suddenly whenever you become 30 years old, then you've got a different mentality, and then you start to enjoy riding along the coast and thinking, this is nice. But like I said, with a cafe racer, I don't want a sports bike on the road because that's for the track. So I always want something like relaxed, high handlebars, just relaxed and cruising along by the sea. That's cool.
So we're going to finish because we're going to play golf.
Crazy golf time. Yeah, we're in Portugal. We have to play golf and we go to crazy golf.
Yeah. So we're going to play golf. אז כן, אז יישאר פה Do you want to learn a few words in Hebrew before we go?
Say 3 because that's probably all I can remember.
3?
Yeah.
3 words, okay.
A phrase that's got 3 words.
A phrase that got 3 words.
See you later? What's that?
להתראות אחר כך. להתראות is see you.
להתראות.
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 כן. להתראות אחר כך.
להתראות אחר כך.
Yeah, more or less.
That's not easy.
No, it's not easy.
As well.
I'm
trying to learn in Portuguese as well, these noises.
People are trying to learn how to say l'chaim, which is cheers for a few days now.
L'chaim.
You managed. So l'chaim, next time.
L'chaim.
Okay. As shalom, you know shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom, you know.
That's probably the only word I know.
Yeah. So shalom. As toda. Toda is thank you.
What is it?
Toda.
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 Okay. Yalla. Bye.